since Jesus is on the main line, and I'm pretty sure we gonna tell him what he wants, or is it Jesus on the main line? Tell him what you want. I want to tell y'all about how Jesus gets us in shit. Internet apologists say.
Shit, internet apologists say.
And they be saying some shit. Let's talk about the latest shit, shall we? Show you right. Well, in this particular article from our friend of the show, Hemant Mehta, on Open Sky Media, it's entitled, He Gets Us. An ad campaign for Jesus ignores an obvious problem. So basically, in my Dr. Evil voice, $100 million was actually spent on an ad campaign to launch Jesus being shown in a more palatable way, to have movable minds come back into the fold. So basically, a group of folk got together, and they were funded by an anonymous donor who spent $100 million to shove Jesus in as many faces as possible. You get a Jesus. You get a Jesus. You get a Jesus. Everybody gets a Jesus. So basically, also what they did is that they had a series of commercials that went over to actually show how, if you're going through different things when you're at a dinner party, and you want to make sure that Jesus hears you, or Jesus feels you, or Jesus knows you, guess what? He does. And he gets you. One of the other campaigns was, even one of the other ads was talking about how, did you know that Jesus' mama was a teen mother too? And I know that you're going through what you're going through, but Jesus gets that too. You dig? You know? And and they actually are planning on doing not only YouTube video campaigns and other media sources. They also want to do billboards and all this other things. And they talked about how this and I believe that this is through like the Servant Christian Foundation. And I have a quote from the article that says that the Servant Christian Foundation approached Bill McKendry. He's the founder and the chief officer of at Haven, who were concerned that too many young Americans are leaving Christianity, and that more people are growing hostile towards faith. And their idea was to do a blitzkrieg for Jesus. Okay, actually, their idea was a national media blitz for Jesus, but you might as well call it a blitzkrieg for Jesus at a scale that no single church can afford. That $100 million. And I'm going to leave it at that and open it up to the table.
I just see it like a kind of thing like buy a Jesus, get your salvation for free. Like that's
Yes.
kind of how I'm seeing it. Like that's the way I look at it.
Buy one, get two Jesus for free. There you go.
That's right. And like this whole like yes, do you know why people are leaving the fucking church? It's because the church has been doing all this hateful rhetoric for years and they're still doing it. And young people are and they're woke, and they're sitting there going, no, because no, you're assholes. No, I'm not gonna, because the things that you've been preaching and saying don't line up with the 21st century, and we just don't want to be a part of it anymore. And they have to like jazz it up and do this huge ad campaign. And again, they do that thing where, if you're suffering, come to Jesus and everything will be okay because Jesus will save you and comfort you and it'll be all right. I promise. And I'm just like, and I just find it, so funny that they're again and again, they're, looking for new ways to sell bullshit to people, and they're getting scared and they have to spend all this money and all this shit to get people back in the pews. And it's failing. So, I find it kind of amusing that they're spending all this money. So, but that's just my perspective. What do you think, Teo?
Thing it's funny, it's hilarious, it's sad. There are so many problems in here. Okay, I will try to take this from a more positive because I've been very negative today. I know, I realize. Yeah, I get it,
Very
guys.
negative for a
Jesus gets it.
cartoon, Teo. Very negative
Yeah.
for a cartoon, by the way.
A very negative cartoon.
Mm.
But Jesus gets me. That's important thing. So sorry, Cynthia. It's Jesus. It's Jesus. He has some points.
Nah.
Okay, let's go with this. Jesus gets us because I love how this start. As you say, they are afraid of people leaving and all of that, and they start with Jesus get us, and they show somebody saying God hates you, and it's like, yeah, I get the idea. They try to say no, those people don't speak by God, but guys, right there, that same image is explaining why people are leaving you. And when they, in the second commercial, when they say, "Oh, did you know that Jesus was the son of that teenager mother too?" Number one, Jesus actually he was recognized by Joseph, so he didn't have all the problems that single mothers have. But most importantly, are they actually admitting that God raped a teenager? Are they really admitting that their God has raped a teenager and made her a single mother? Because there is.
Well, hold on. Now, there was a messenger that came to Mary and said, "Hey, God chose you to go ahead and have his baby boy." And she
That-
did kind of consent, saying, "Be it unto me as God wills," etc., etc.
I mean, can you call it consent when they say the guy who can drown every single human in the universe at his will wants to make you pregnant?
Okay.
Can we talk about
I
consent?
concede. I'm just, and she, and according to some historians, she was quite underage, what we would consider underage. So that
14,
could be
15, I think.
yeah, like what he said. They said that she was a teen mom. I mean, like some historians actually report that like that probably happened like when she was like around 12 years old. So that's kind of like statutory rapist shit. Just saying.
Yep.
Yeah, but it was magic, so it's not that bad.
Oh, okay. So
Oh,
it's
yeah,
okay.
It's magic.
It's
Right.
okay.
Right? Here's your
Okay,
caveat.
gotcha. Yeah, ta-da! Yeah, abracadabra. It's all
Suddenly
good.
went very depressing in there. I said it was going to be okay, but okay. We have a whole country that all their politicians are based on religious rituals. You have the right side and the extreme right side, and both of them are doing everything because Jesus tells you to. Churches, do you really need to spend $1 million? Dun, dun, dun,
No, no, no,
dun.
no, 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 no.
No. Okay.
$100 million.
That's way more.
Continue. Mhm.
There's way more.
Okay. I don't want to call this a stupid movement, but what a waste of time and money, guys. What a waste of money. You have Christians doing this for free. Do you remember when we were talking about pirates, atheists who were removing signs that Christians put out there?
Our
Guys,
matey.
yeah, people are doing this for free, and you want to spend $100 million? Wow, yeah, doing what people are doing for free, and with commercials that talk against everything that you are talking about. I don't know. It's weird. I'm going to say weird, and that's the most positive I can be today with all the topics that we have been talking about.
I just want to, if you don't mind, I just want to just wrap up this particular segment by going to the Bible. Turn with me to Matthew 25:31 through 40. When the Son of Man comes in his glory, and all the angels with him, he will sit on his glorious throne. All the nations will be gathered before him, and he will separate the people one from another, as a shepherd separates the sheep from the goats. He will put the sheep on his right and the goats on his left. Then the king will say to those on his right, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. I needed clothing, and you clothed me. I was sick, and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came and visited me. Then the righteous will answer him, Lord, when did you see you were hungry and fed you, or thirsty and we gave you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invited you in, or needing clothing and we clothed you? When did we see you sick or in prison and went to visit you? And the king replied, Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. So, people, instead of spending $100 million on ad campaigns to bring them back to Christianity, why don't you use that $100 million to actually help somebody? And as one of our lovely nonprofits, Richard Gilliver, says across the pond, read your fucking Bible.
Segment 3. This is a bit heavy. This is we don't touch a lot. I've heard we don't touch or have a lot of discussion on the Islamic faith. So this is an excellent story regarding the ultimate sin within Islam, which is blasphemy. So there has been a situation of a Sri Lankan man that was beaten, lynched, and body was set ablaze by his workers. He was a manager of a factory in Pakistan. I am not going to butcher his name, but the article is linked down below. I just want to pay that respect because I cannot pronounce it. But not going to pronounce that name. He was a general manager at Rajco Industries in Pakistan. He was a target of a violent mob following rumors that he allegedly tore down stickers and posters that bore the image of Muhammad, the Prophet Muhammad. It started out as a few dozen workers that began protesting outside of the factory gates. And then it swelled into more protesters, which were of the local residences around that company. So this it wasn't just the workers; it was people that didn't even work there that heard of what was the rumor of this man allegedly tearing down the image of Muhammad. But they broke through the gates. They rushed the factory floor. I haven't searched for video, but according to this article, there has been gruesome video of people actually filming filming what happened to this man. I haven't watched it. I'm sure I'll just leave it at that. The video contains, and these have circulated all across various social media platforms, even people taking selfies of the man's corpse. It contains them of him being beaten by iron rods, being strangulated, and then once his body was, once he was dead, people set his body on fire, took selfies with his burnt corpse. It's gruesome. It's unfortunate just because of a rumor of an image being torn down out of the, Prophet Allah or Prophet Muhammad, whatever. It's not my faith, but I'm shaking for two reasons. It's horrible what happened to this man, and it's another thing to just have a rumor cause your death. And the sin of blasphemy is one of those hard-hitting sins that could get you murdered, apparently. And this man was murdered. According to the article, there were over 120 people that were arrested for the cause of this murder, but even more, hundreds of others that were actively there in participation to this crime. So
Yeah, there's so much about this in a lot of different ways. And by the time that this episode comes out, more developments will have occurred, of course, and there are many people out there, some really great secular or ex-Muslim thinkers that have already given their thoughts on this, and there's just a couple that I want to give because this has infuriated me. And I am so fucking tired. I am so fucking tired of somebody telling me that me offending their belief, me doing something that makes their fairy tale upset, deserves that type of punishment. That's bullshit. That is bullshit. And the keen observer will note that even if this man had not been fucking murdered in the streets, the law exists on the books, and he would have been taken to court, and he would have been tried, and he could have been found guilty and put on death row. There currently sit in Pakistan a dozen individuals that are on death row for something ridiculous like this. We don't even know if it was a picture of the Prophet Muhammad. We don't know if it was a Quran verse. We don't know what the hell the poster was. But this man died. This man is dead because people heard a rumor and they got upset. And if you pay attention, you'll notice, the real keen observer will notice, that the state of Pakistan actually hasn't put any blasphemers to death. You know why? Because their politicians have fanned the flames for this type of mob violence. The Prime Minister Imran Khan tweeted that it was a shameful day. If you really feel ashamed, Prime Minister, release those people. Period. End of sentence. Release those people and guarantee their safety from more shit like this. I'm just pissed. I'm just angry about it. And I think we should all start the year off with this in mind and remember it the entire damn year. We need to stand up against this. This cannot go unnoticed. I'm so glad that we are talking about this because it is horrible. And it just can't be something that we sweep under the rug again. We have to fight back against this.
You're
They're
angry
acting like
and
the
rightfully so. Yeah,
Go ahead, Mateo.
Sorry,
Mhm.
Josh. Yeah, I will take it from here, Mr. Josh. Now, I totally agree with you, Secular, and you're, as I said, you are right to be angry. This case is one of the most disgusting things ever, and it takes me back to August. Do you remember when an 8-year-old boy became the youngest person charged with blasphemy in
Yes.
Pakistan only because he was fucking peeing in a place and he was going to be murdered,
Yes.
and we have no idea what happened with that child? I mean, how the fuck is possible that nowadays this type of bullshit is happening outside in this same planet? Here we are in different parts of different continents talking at the same time, on live at the same time, talking about these issues, and on other sides of the planet, of this planet, people are being murdered because of stupid beliefs from 2000 years ago. I mean, how crazy, how awful can the human race be for this to happen? We have advanced so much in one side, and on the other side you can be murdered only because you talk against an imaginary being. I mean, I'm pretty sure if I lived over there, I would have been killed years ago, only because I dare to think for myself and not to believe the same stupid stuff that everybody else believes in there. So yeah, I'm extremely upset as well. I know I don't show it, but this makes me extremely angry because I think this is the reason why we do what we do, because we don't want our countries to become the Christian version of those places. Because guys, if you read your Bible, I should be stoned because I always talk against your God, against certain God from the Bible. So there are people who want that for the country where I live. And I don't want me to be murdered, but I don't want anyone to be murdered only due to those awful beliefs. Sorry, Josh.
No, go. That was perfectly fine. I need to be interrupted every once in a while. I do it to everybody else.
I wouldn't call it fun, but anyways.
Yeah, one interrupt at a time. I get really frustrated with this kind of shit because the government did like say that this was a bad thing, but the problem wasn't so much that the guy was killed. It was that it was vigilante justice is what they're emphasizing on.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
that like they're okay with killing people for blasphemy.
Right.
That'd be perfectly fine. If they did whatever their fucking stupid justice system was, they'd be okay if he got put to death after that. So it's not so much that like they killed a guy for peeling stickers, which they're even saying that was proper procedure for cleaning up the machines in the factory that he worked at. And his wife was saying he would never be blasphemous. So it's like a lot of just people in religious fervors can get worked up over absolutely nothing and decide when somebody's being blasphemous. And there in the article it talked about there have been 77 vigilante style murders done in the name of against blasphemy, and all that is just speculation, which it doesn't even fucking matter whether it's speculation or not. I'm a metalhead that listens to a band. It's called Rotting Christ. I want to be able to say fuck you God and whatever music I listen to, and I don't think anybody anywhere in the world should be stopped from doing that. It's a fucking idea. When they can prove that this God exists, maybe when he comes down and says something to us, maybe then we'll stop doing blasphemy. I probably still will, but I'll be struck by lightning or something. But fuck this shit.
Blasphemy is not a crime.
Well,
Shouldn't be,
crimes
never.
are where they make them. So it is a crime there, but blasphemy shouldn't be.
Yeah, I mean, right. It's not a crime in the sense of like murder, right?
Yeah,
Like
it's not.
What
It's not
was the crime?
immoral.
Was the murder of this
Yeah.
man?
right, exactly.
And it's so weird because just in the article, and I try to look at supplemental ones too, just to get an idea of what the investigators were saying. I felt really like, and you know, with the shit that goes on in America, it's already disheartening. But, and you know, with the investigations of lack thereof that they do and certain, you know, murders of certain people, I already feel disheartened. But this one was really telling to me because I just felt as if what the investigators were saying didn't really feel like they were trying, to put it simply. They didn't feel like they were trying to, I mean, yeah, they arrested folks, sure, but it almost felt like the vigilantism of killing this man was an easy, you know, brush off the shoulder, like, oh, we don't have to waste our time trying to take this person to trial for blasphemy. We just let the folks, you know, take care of it on their own. I'm like, okay, well, we'll arrest them for a while. We'll keep them in jail for a time or two just to show that, you know, we're doing something. That's what it read to me. That's how it read to me.
It almost feels like low-key how we treat sex workers when there's a crime done against them. Like we treat them like they're expendable. It doesn't matter. They kind of broke the law. They were doing something dangerous. They kind of had it coming. So we'll do a perfunctory look at this and make it seem like there's some sort of law going, but they're not. They're barely viewed as people by some people in law. I'm not gonna say all people in law enforcement, by some people in law enforcement. And this is the same kind of thing. The law doesn't care about these people because they supposedly blaspheme. And these people know to enforce the laws. You got to kill the blasphemers.
And the fake surprise that you're seeing from so many figures that were blatantly fanning these flames. That may be one of the parts that just makes me so mad. You stood there and you told people. You told them exactly what to do if something like this happens. You said, this is righteous. You said, this is what our scripture demands. And then when they do it, you pretend not to know why. You pretend not to know where it came from.
But you know,
like the whole I will take it from here. It's like the whole society is just being poisoned somehow, because when I read the defense of the wife of this guy, she said, I'm going to quote her. He was very much aware of the living conditions in Pakistan. It is a Muslim country. He knew what he should not do there, and that's how he managed to work there for 11 years. What she's trying to say is he would never do that because he knew how dangerous it is. But guys, I can imagine people. I can see people saying, yeah, he knew that he was not supposed to go against the prophet. He was not supposed to do anything against Islam. So he was looking for this when he dared to do that. When this phrase that is a defense can be used to justify what happened to this guy is when you have a whole society that is being poisoned to the core. And as Secular said, they are constantly being fed this hatred and these awful ideas that if somebody dares to do something against their religion, they practically deserve death. And that's sickening. That's awful.
Yes, and I agree with you. I'm sure we all do. But I want to pull a little bit from just bouncing off what Secular Rayleigh said about this being a part of their scripture. I did a little digging because I don't know enough about the Islamic faith. So I wanted to find out truly is this is a part of the Quran. If it's truly a part of Scripture that blasphemy is the ultimate sin and this is punishable by the death of those around you. And so there was an interesting information that I pulled. This is from a associate professor from the State University of New York. Her name is Shameen Bernie Abbas, and she is a profound pioneer of the study of the evolution of blasphemy and the laws of early Islamic empires up until today's present day Taliban. So there was a bit of a quote here from this I guess you could say study that she did, in which it states the Quran mentions many examples of disbelievers ridiculing and mocking Muhammad, but never commands him to punish those who mocked him. Instead, the Quran asks Muhammad to leave the punishment of blasphemy to God or Allah, and that there would be justice in the afterlife. So clearly, I don't think, and I haven't read the Quran. I'm basing it off of another professional's investigation of said book. Okay. So taking her word, as far as the extensive study that she has done, as far as the Quran scripture, blasphemy by punishment of your fellow followers on earth should not be punishable by sin. According to this is the justice in the afterlife for Allah to do. I mean, obviously, I don't trust all that BS anyway, but it's even more damning how much of these laws that are written in these countries that are of Islamic faith bolster and keep with this, ultimate death penalty bullshit when it comes to someone allegedly, mind you, blaspheming against Muhammad.
Well, that's all
It's
really
not even in
surprising to
scripture.
me. That's all really surprising to me because I know about like the Muhammad cartoons getting people killed and blown up, and I never investigated it further. Islam is not really the religion. I mean, I'm also in California. It's not really the religion that's going on around here. I know a bunch of Christians. I don't think I've ever met anybody that's at least openly Islamic. So like, I've been kind of taking the media's word for it, and I guess that's something I should investigate a little bit.
And it is
I
worth
think
looking at a couple of different places and understanding. For instance, there is a hadith that is considered sahih, which is considered strong in Arabic, which means that it has good narration and translation and history, and they consider it to be pretty true, where it does seem to make it out that if you kill somebody for insulting Muhammad, that's okay. And there is a surah 9:5, a surah and an ayah that specifically states to go out and kill the non-believers any of the days, as long as it is not the holy months of Ramadan. And while we could talk about the theology of it forever, I think the real problem is that there is a book that is supposed to be the true words of some all-powerful, all-capable thing. And when that's what you base your system on, there is always room for massive problems like this. Because I can stand up and read the book and say, well, this is what I think it says. And you can stand up and say, well, this is what I think it says. And we don't have a good way to determine who's right. Whereas we do know when you kill somebody, that's it. Like, we know that from science, that they tell us that. I'm not medically trained, but I do believe Jenna can help us out here. I mean, do people come back from the dead? Do we have that?
No, we don't have that.
But if my book says it does, I'll live my life like that, and bad consequences can come from that.
Yeah, I'll let you
Yeah,
know when they update the medical journal.
Thank you. I'm looking forward.
Have
I've
some
seen a few
cohesion with biblical scripture. I'll let you know.
I've seen a few movies on my podcast that kind of say the otherwise that people can come back, but I don't know if Return of the Living Dead is a real documentary. But
It's a good movie though.
Great movie. My absolute problem with this is I had an idea and then I completely lost it because secular rarity was like killing it there.
Sorry.
But yeah, somebody else take it from me. I lost my point.
While you
It's
think
okay.
about that, I'm just going to add that secular was referring to the Quran, Surah 5:9, no, 9:5. That is the one that says after the forbidden months, go fight, kill, ambush, torture, and lie in order to kill the unbelievers. So yeah,
Yeah.
there is a whole book talking against us.
I remember my point
Non-believers.
now.
Go
We
for
we
it.
were supposed we I tried to relate this article to me because I get frustrated with this kind of thing because the Pakistan, we can't really do fucking shit for what's going on over there. So I'm like, we got to relate this to how America is going, and we can see the religious fervor rising in here. So we got to like use this as not like a warning of what absolutely is going to happen, but we got to be watching these religious groups and seeing where they're trying to manipulate power and where they're trying to place religion into government and institutions. And like I see them trying to get creationism in schools, and like that's a part of religion getting snuck in there. It's like little, I think there's, I can't remember what it's called, but there's like a religious force where they're trying to sneak as many tiny things of religion into the government as possible. And it seems like a little tiny thing until it adds up to where they get control, and they're doing it with Roe versus Wade. They're taking away that right now. This is like all heading not necessarily exactly in that direction, but we're starting to turn at least towards that a little bit. And we got to be watching, like, use this as like a warning sign of what happens when religious fervor and people aren't questioning it enough happens.
Yeah. And I'm gonna give
Definitely.
you that final word, Josh, on that. It definitely speaks volumes to what we see now in our country versus, everywhere else. Just bleeding into that whatever type of faith wants to implement on our laws. So I'll give you that last word.
And I believe that's a perfect segue for our last but final,
Exactly.
last and
Yeah.
final segment. Um, it's either Christian nationalism or democracy. You can't have both. Now, this comes from the article that I just mentioned from Only Sky Media. Matter of fact, an aside that on the Only Sky Media is now the new home of atheist writers who that used to be on Pathos. So you all make sure you guys check this out. And this particular article was written by Marcus Johnson, and it's an opinion piece. And basically, he was talking about how there is a growing faction of folk they call, like, basically have traversed from white evangelical to Christian nationalists, who has a tendency to be quite problematic in their political ideologies. They have a tendency to be a bit more xenophobic. They have a tendency to have more ideas that are considered racist. And they also have a tendency to storm the Capitol on January 6th to say that the elections were rigged. And and I just wanted to mention that, one of the things that we kind of forget, I think, sometimes, and 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 I was even thinking about this specifically when we were talking, because we've been talking about Christian nationalists on the nonprofits for a while now.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the things that some people kind of get surprised, I suppose, about them even existing. But I think that we forget that Christian nationalist ideas have been around just as long as there have been the United States and beyond. Because, like, there's going to be certain you know political, theological, whatever type of leanings that people of this ilk happen to possess. And they even have, like, some of the same things that they may balk against, like, with other religions, like, let's just say, for instance, Islam. Islamic religions, or being Muslim, about, well, we don't want Sharia law. But this is exactly the same type of
They
of
just want their
notion or
version of it.
idea that they want to bring, but they want to do it in a Christian worldview, right? Now, I even talk about this particular author. His name is Robert P. Jones. He is the CEO of PRRI. And also, he is the author of this wonderful book called White Too Long. I recommend everybody check it out. But one of the things that they quoted in this particular article was that he said, for more than 2 decades, I've studied the attitudes of religiously affiliated Americans across the country. And over and year over year, in question after question in public opinion polls, a clear pattern has emerged. White Christians are consistently more likely than whites who are religiously unaffiliated to deny the existence of structural racism. And this is and I really just like, I'm going to go ahead and open it up to everybody else, but this is something that we just really just have to think about, like, who, if you're going to say that we're going to open it up, that this idea of being like, I guess like Christian nationalist or what have you, is should be acceptable, but we still want a democracy, which will be encompassing of a plethora of different ideas. What do we want?
Well, these are the people that you see with the most flags hanging from their trucks. They like the ideology of, like, this is America, this is democracy. They love this, but they don't actually like the ideas behind democracy. But they've been in charge of things for so long that they're not even thinking about them being outside of that democracy has changed, or that the people have changed, and that the will of the people is no longer their will anymore. So that's why you get the white Christian nationalists suddenly having problems. Like, it's been going our way for so long. The election couldn't have gone that way. Obviously, it was rigged because we're winners. But occasionally, you fucking lose.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you on that, Josh, completely. And I was going to say something very similar. Is they've gotten so used to having their own way
Mm.
here. They've gotten so used to being the ones, quote unquote, in charge and making the rules and stuff like that. And now that people are saying, "Hey, look, sit the fuck down," because you're not the only ones that are capable of running the show here. And now they're freaking out about it, and that's why I think we're hearing a lot more voices in that sort of spectrum of hatred, or whatever you want to put it, because they've lost control. Not
Mm.
not completely, obviously, but it's coming, and they're not going to be the ones that are the powerhouse politicians and governors and etc.
Well, the ideology may be in the minority, but another issue that
But they're loud.
they're loud and they're organized, because
Yeah.
what I was going to say is that, a lot of lawmakers in local areas are writing laws to actually expand this Christian national type
Yeah.
idea. I mean, this is why we're seeing abortion rights being, chipped away at and on the state and municipal levels. This is
Hmm.
why we're seeing, at least about, I want to say the last time I checked, there was like over 15 or 20 states that have like some type of either voting on bills to ban CRT in their public schools,
Hmm.
or they're in talk, or have actually passed laws to ban, CRT, teaching of it, even though I keep saying this, but CRT is not taught in schools, y'all. I'm just trying to, it's history. It's history, and also we're even seeing, like, the banning of transgender students from playing sports, like, this, and like all of this is because these are the people that's like actually in seats of power. I mean, and they have been planning this stuff for a long time. Matter of fact, I wanted to quote something from the article that stated that Christian nationalists are increasingly attracted to author
Authoritarian.
yes, authoritarianism. Say that 3 times, 5 times fast. And a political system where one small group makes the political decisions and the rest of society is shut out. In a
Hmm.
Christian nationalist vision of America, religious minorities, ethnic minorities, and other marginalized groups will have fewer political rights and won't be able to fully participate. Christians would make the political decisions, they would control the social order, and they would dominate the culture. Enforcing this kind of system would be akin to erasing generations of social and cultural progress in the United States, and it would mean reverting back to a political system of a century ago where women and racial minorities were not able to fully participate in American democracy.
What's terrifying is this is a base that, like, they're not the highest numbers, but they're more motivated than almost all the other bases that I talk to. I'm mostly friends with people on the left, but they showed up for the last presidential election, and that's about it. And then you get all the power in other areas of the government that's being ignored by our side. And the people that are Christian nationalists, they're motivated. They're taking every little chip of the government that they can get to hold on to this power. And like you mentioned that CRT isn't taught in schools, but they're going to use that as a talking point anyways, because it scares old white people into voting for them.
I mean, that's how Youngkins got into office. He said that he was going to ban transgender students from playing in sports, and he was going to ban CRT, and he was going to ban abortion. And people was like, "Yes, let's put him." And then like they said, "Well, he has a black lieutenant governor, but she just as bad as him because she's a black woman that's saying basically the same problematic rhetoric." And that's not going to be the thing that's going to move us forward. But Neil, take it away.
Well, as my notes has said, as a Canadian, I kind of feel bad for you guys because it seems like your whole political spectrum there is circling the drain. You know what I mean? So you can't have religious influence in government. It's always been problematic, and it always will be problematic. That's I made a note that reading some of these stories, it led me to thinking shades of The Handmaid's Tale. Like it's just like a theocracy is going to end up taking over you guys down there, and it scares the crap out of me because a lot of people up here in Canada, like I had personally had a relative that said, "Oh, I miss Trump." What?
It's weird, but I've heard of people like all the way in Australia that are backing that kind of a mindset.
That's ridiculous.
I've seen marches in even Asian countries for Trump. I've seen marches in Nigeria for and in support of Trump. And and one of the things that I wanted to also bring up is that some of the issues that that is allowing these notions to prevail is folk who may consider themselves progressive or leftists or what have you have kind of a laissez-faire way of that they think about politics. And I mean, like, I know that I haven't been all my life, a person that paid attention to politics. That kind of happened much later in life because I saw that when you don't pay attention to politics, you get, people like Trump, and you get people like Youngkins, and you get people who are not, and even on considered like people who are on the left who say they're leftists, but their politics don't reflect that.
Don't adhere
Like,
to that, yeah.
yeah, they don't adhere to that. I mean, we even see this like, in the Senate now, like, people who say, well, I'm Democrat, but like they're voting, very, I don't even say like conservative leaning, but they vote alt right. And some of the things that they happen to, really cleave to is alt right. And it would behoove us all to really, start to like pay attention to this stuff. And then like when you like have like people who may be in like these governmental positions who say that they're left, but they're kind of like, apathetic when it comes to being more to paying more attention and really listening to their constituency, then you have their constituency leaving them because they think that they don't care about them.
That's
and this is why this type of thing prevails.
The problem is the left isn't willing to fight dirty, and the right definitely has shown that they're willing to bend the rules to fit their narrative. That's why they got a Supreme Court justice in under the wire when we had a bigger time frame for Obama to get somebody in before 45 came in. So like we need to be fighting a little bit more aggressive. I'm not saying like go completely dirty, but like if they've exploited something, the left needs to exploit, and then we need to take it on the individual level. Like for the longest time, I wasn't very political at all, and it was so much nicer in life. I was so much happier being ignorant. But if you look at me, I'm one of those people that could afford to be ignorant. And as soon as I caught on to the world around me, I'm like, oh, I'm kind of like, I'm saying I support minorities, but I'm not doing anything about it. So I'm part of the problem. So eventually I had to step up into it. And we need more people having that light bulb go off in their head and start taking action on every level of the political system. Go ahead, Neil. Sorry, I'm talking too much.
Well, I just want to say that you gotta make sure that you don't get people into positions where they can lead other people into believing that they can now voice their opinions on racism and bigotry and transphobia or whatever. Like it's okay to call these people out or make jokes about them or just trash on them in general. Because if you're like that as a constituent or a governor or even a president, like good old 45 there, now you've opened it so that people say, oh, so I can actually say stuff like this now. It's okay to be a douchebag now. All right, well, hey, I'm gonna open my douchebag up wide and show the world how much of a jerk I actually am.
Yeah, and I just wanted to surround out this whole thing with shout out to J Mike when he said it's crazy to think that there can even possibly favor a false narrative that makes them or Christian nationalists feel that they can justify their potential racism, homophobia, and transphobia.
He put it much more eloquently than I did.
Right. And actually, I just want to go back a little bit. He said, given that these facts are easily accessible, like, when he talks about the rhetoric, it appears that we have to figure out a way to really hammer this point home so there's no false foundational basis for Christians to find themselves in so comfortably to be able to tout their particular notions that are extremely problematic.
I like the sounds of a hammer. That works.
Yeah, bang. I'm all about that.
Attitude adjustment tool.
Exactly. We're going to put that in like an emoji or something like that.
Yeah.
Josh, you are heading off our final segment for this episode. Please, by all means, take over.
I kind of wanted to do this one because I'm usually the pessimist in all the groups that I'm in. So it's nice to give something that's at least a little bit on the upside for a change. And this is an article about why pastors are joining the Great Resignation from Sojourners. The article talks about how, according to a recent poll data by Barna Group, a California-based research group that studies faith and culture, that many pastors are considering. I noticed there was an effort on considering instead of leaving necessarily in the demographics that they were given, but are considering leaving the church. Of those polled, 38% of the senior members consider leaving the church, and pastors under 45 had a rising number of 46% that have considered leaving the church since the pandemic started. The article didn't give numbers on those who actually resonated. I would love to see like firm numbers on this, but I looked at it, and the article was written. I forgot to write down her name, but it was a religious person, so maybe they don't want those numbers completely out there for everybody to take a look at. But the problem is they're not leaving for the right reasons. They're leaving because they're frustrated with not having enough money because of the pandemic, or they're seeing some frustrations with how people have been dealing with the pandemic and how politicians are being kind of hypocritical for some of them. But they're not leaving because they've lost faith in God. They've lost faith in. They're almost doing like the I'm not religious, but I have a relationship with God kind of thing, because they're not leaving God. They're just leaving the building's institutions.
Right. And I did pull out the pastor's name. Her name is Melissa Flora Bixler. She's a pastor of her own church, location pending, but yeah, that's what the breadth of that whole Great Resignation read to me. It's no real movement from pastors or people that work a senior pastor or what have you moving away from religion, as you stated. It's just more of, well, this pandemic fucks shit up and I'm not making enough money, so I got to go do something else.
It still is a step in the right direction. Like getting disillusioned with it is like the first. Oh, I've never been religious, but I've heard it's the first step of getting out of religion is like finding little cracks in the walls on it. So this could be. I'm not going to say all of them are suddenly going to go atheist, and we'll see them hosting this show. But I would say that there's probably going to be a drop off of at least some of them. But I don't know how significant that number would be.
Yeah, I think Josh made a good point where, you know, it while I would want them to be resigning because what they're saying is, look, you know, I I investigated this and I really tried and it just doesn't hold up. They are saying something about this organization. It's not working the way it should, right? I'm called from God himself. God put me here. God put this family here, this building, and yet they're not able to run. And not only that, but there's infighting and you know, people doing just shady stuff to each other and all of this and hey, if the reason that you step away from your church and from continuing to give people bad conclusions and bad evidence and just poor epistemology in general, if the reason you do that is because you just didn't have enough snacks at the Sunday meeting, I gotta be honest, I'm okay with that.
I mean,
I'm
you gotta
fine
have
with that.
snacks.
You gotta have those snacks.
If
I
I'm gonna
almost, I
sit
almost
there for
left
no.
2 hours, you gotta feed me.
That's
I've almost left the stream because you guys didn't provide me any snacks.
Josh, Secular, you two are too optimistic, I have to say. Sorry, didn't get your joke. What is stopping those guys from just leaving this one organization and creating their own church and try to become a televangelist on their own? There is nothing stopping
Well,
them from doing that.
true. I see your point, Mateo. I do. I think overall it's because, you know, with everything that has caused such restraint during the pandemic, hell, even my family's church is still not in person. And I haven't heard word of them going back in person for the foreseeable future. They've been virtual ever since the height of this. And this has been like over a year running, 2 years. So, or however long, as the years are bleeding together. Hi, 2020, 2022, y'all. But it's 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 powerful in a sense that now we're seeing less senior pastors moving away from having this being their full-time duty because there's lack of participation. There's older generations that want to be in person. Virtual is not on the hippity hop side of things.
That was
It's
hipper
tough.
to say it.
It's what's hip and top. You know, they're trying to find new ways of having money being funded to them. Text us, you know, here's my Venmo, here's my Cash App, you know, send me some money. It's like you can't. It's hard, it's difficult. People don't like that. And you know, the support and familiarity of being in service is what bolsters and benefits churches in the first place because you have that surrounding emotion, you have your fellowship, you, hey neighbor, yeah, you have that. And now that you're lacking that, that's why they're moving away because they can't even support themselves. I mean, there ain't no Joel Osteen, but hey, there's something in that game apparently. But interestingly enough, there was some news according to a survey released Tuesday of the past day of whenever this will be released per recording, by the Pew Research Center. This group, commonly known as the nuns, which is basically shortening for non-believers, now constitutes 29% of American adults. That's up since 2016, which was at 23%, and even more so since 2011, which was at 19%. So we are seeing great increases for us seculars. Hello. because of this, great resignation of pastors moving away from, full duty preaching jobs and into something else.
I have a hard time getting excited about the nuns just because I know a lot of people that fit the nuns and they still love tarot cards, and not in the way that like
I mean,
they know it's an exercise or whatever. I still know people that like homeopathy. They just don't believe in God. I wish we could get a number of how many people are skeptical in that group, and then I get a little bit more excited about it.
That's
That's
why
a
the
need for data
segment's
collection.
called A Step in the Right Direction and not a leap forward in the right direction, right?
You were so good.
We
That's why
got
you're
we got
here.
the first step. We got they're finally
There's
starting to
something.
question,
There you
but
go.
we do need better snacks. If we're gonna invite more people, y'all, we need better snacks.
Well, I
So.
did start the segment saying that I'm a pessimist and I couldn't keep the optimism going for a whole segment.
Had to come down at some point.
That's fair.
Everybody's
Okay,
got to
I
end this
guess-
stream with this frown.
I will try to get the optimistic thing in here, and let me quote some part of the article. Here, somebody said, "My colleagues have shared about how difficult it has been to convince white liberal churches to stand against racism and reimagine economic practices that emphasize redistribution." So it's not only about lack of money, but also apparently they want to follow the word of God. Apparently, I don't know, but the leaders are kind of against them. What do you think about these guys? What do you believe them? Do you believe that this is just an excuse? Do you think that they were actually trying to do something right? Do you have any opinion about this?
The thing
Yeah,
is, I don't think like necessarily the small churches are the Joel Osteen types. I do think some of them like believe what they're saying and like they're actually trying to practice what they preach. Especially these ones that are talking about how they did the Great Resignation under reasons for vaccine mandates and masks, and how the church was sending out bad signals about that. Some of them are on the up and up. So I do believe that some of them have great ideas for humanity. Is just I want to take the religion away from it.
Yeah. And I think what we're seeing is just a continuation and an increase of the wave that we have continued to see for the last 20 to 30 some odd years. I mean, as this wonderfully interesting world that we have has gotten more connected and we have been able to actually find information. Look, you're not a damn physicist because you watched a video on YouTube, people, but you can learn some damn basics. And that's good because for a long time, there were a lot of us that just didn't know anything. And there's so many stories out there where somebody says, gosh, I learned this one fact, and all of a sudden now I'm skeptical about everything, and I always seek the best evidence. And this is that first little bullet point. This is that first little box that has to be checked off, and hopefully what this will lead to is exactly where Josh was saying. Hopefully what we'll see is more people stepping away further, and they'll stop being nuns and they'll start being humanists and skeptics and atheists, and they'll just be out there advocating for stuff, and we won't even have to do it anymore. We'll all be out of jobs. I mean,
Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more optimistic than I'm willing to go for it, but like I do see like the older generation dropping off maybe because they're not used to the technology. Like Jenna made that point. Like I go to the movies all the time with a mask, and I'll see the older generation struggle with assigned seating. So like the fact that they can't figure that out means that they're not gonna have the technology to support these churches, and like this whole technological streaming age isn't for a lot of, I know some tech savvy older people. I'm not trying to say all older people don't know it, but they're going to lose a lot of people through this. And I can see churches falling by the wayside, and without the institution being there, it could be hard for people. I'm not saying completely by the wayside, but it might be like with polling situations where you might have to drive a little bit further to get to the church that's closest to you. And that's going to hurt some people doing attendance, and you need the constant reinforcement of the word of God in order to get people to continue to believe this thing.
To bring it back to a bit more optimism, I for me, I recognize that as a Black atheist, there are a lot of silent voices within the attachment of Black people and Christianity or religion in general. And I know there's like a recent article that referenced how minuscule, how minimum of us are. And not only just stating that you have a non belief, but actually outwardly stating that you have a non-belief. A lot of us still remain closeted. I am also an exception of that because I am outside of this internet sphere and closeted. So I think this provides some encouragement as far as, this withdrawal of, building more churches and having more of the, ministries going on, to where it would allow the open-mindedness of looking at other things more critically and discerning for oneself, not just as a Black an atheist, but all people, that now we don't have this hindrance of churches trying to open their doors and welcome you as you are type bullshit. You can finally do your own due diligence for yourself, for your own life, and apply a bit more skepticism.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.